Okay, folks, I got
I'm
7:30.
gonna have to come home and buy some. I'm gonna have to come by and buy some fish at Eikenberry's.
Hi, guys. Am I on?
Okay,
Yeah, you're on.
take over, Doug, and
Am I on picture?
How you doing?
Hello, Dory.
Hi, on. And am I on picture?
No, I don't see your picture.
Not seeing you, Dory.
Okay, I hit video.
That thing was unbusted. I kind of had numbers up on there to get on Zoom or something.
That's what this, yeah, that's what this is. They haven't started talking about nothing. Kaiden. Ryan wants to, he's talking about the racism and
Are you there, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, I got 7:31. Let's call the meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Howdy, Shell.
Here.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Whitaker.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Godwin.
Here.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America,
to
and to the republic
For
which
which
it
it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Approval of the minutes. The minutes have been sent out. Any additions or corrections to those? If not, we'll call those minutes approved. Approval of the current financial report.
Move to accept.
Motion by Mr. Whitaker to accept the current financial report. Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, approval of the agenda. I think we still have a couple items. I know Jessica's been busy. We've kept her busy here making a few additions. So do you have anything there to add right now?
Yes, we have the Finance Committee report for the 2021 budget. And then we have 4 new pieces of legislation to add. The first piece of legislation is an ordinance to establish a local coronavirus relief fund. And then the second is a resolution revoking resolution 2043 regarding water supply services in Greenville related to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and declaring an emergency. And that's it.
Okay, you've heard the additions. We need an approval to add these additional items.
Move to-
Is that Leon? Was that you?
Yes.
All right, motion by Mr. Rogers to amend the agenda. Call the roll.
Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, moving on to public hearing. We have one scheduled zoning amendment. Clerk, I'll let you read that.
Can you say that again?
Under the public hearing, we have one scheduled. If you would read the synopsis about that, please.
The zoning amendment to zone 1.83 acres, parts of Seder subdivision and outlots number 12 and number 22, along with Lane Park addition, south half of lot number 1619 and lots 1620 through 1623 in their entirety from special use SU to planned use development PUD-R.
All right, thank you. Is there someone here that's going to speak about this public hearing? Does anyone wish to speak about it, this particular item?
Yes, Derek Robinson here with Bonanza Custom Homes. Basically, the current zoning on the property doesn't allow for family dwellings. So we've applied to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get that changed, and they have approved that or recommended it on their end for our overall plan of putting the single family attached and single family detached on the old South School property there on the south end of town.
Okay. Is Mr. Reeman, are you there?
I am.
What steps do we need to take now? We just needed to have the public hearing portion tonight, or what do we need to do?
So we are the public. Yep. If there are no other comments during the public hearing portion, I went ahead and prepared legislation. So there is legislation to change the zoning from special use to PUD-R that is ready to go for this evening, if council wishes to continue in that way. And so we would amend the agenda to add one more piece of legislation, which is ready.
Okay. Does anyone else have any further discussion about this topic?
You need to move forward with it, Doug.
Do you want to make the motion to add this to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Okay. Got a motion before you to add this piece of legislation to the agenda. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Michelle,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Rice,
Yes. Yes.
All right. That passes. Moving. Anything else then we need to do with that, Mr. Reeman, or we just since we've got it added, just we'll act on it later in the meeting?
Yep. So that's exactly right. We'll address it as we get to the ordinances and resolutions. Then.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. Moving on with the public hearing then, does anyone else wish to address council? If so, please state your name, your address, and what you need to discuss. Mic's open.
My name is Ryan Acker, and I'm wondering if this is the time where we can talk about a resolution that we had submitted to the safety director.
Yeah, if you have something to discuss, now would be the time to do so.
Okay. My name is Ryan Acker. I live on Warren Street, and I think, as everyone knows, George Floyd was killed by an officer in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, and this has resulted in protests throughout the country. And there are many of us here in Greenville who would like to see the city of Greenville be proactive so that we can prevent anything like that from happening here. And so we submitted to you, I believe you have a copy of a resolution that we would like to see passed in the city of Greenville. And this resolution really talks about some important things, which is recognizing that Greenville is the treaty city and that it was played an important role in establishing the rest of the United States, that the city recognizes that there are many people here in Greenville who are mourning the death of George Floyd, that the city recognizes that the protests across the country are also working to raise awareness of racial inequality and inequity within our justice system. And this resolution asks the city to recognize that we have a constitutional right to due process. And when lethal force is used by an officer of the law, it prevents us from being able to have our due process rights. This resolution also asks the city of Greenville to recognize that residents have a right to feel safe in their home and that when there are no-knock raids or no-knock warrants, it jeopardizes the safety of Americans and officers. And this resolution asks to recognize that the overcriminalization of certain behaviors leads to greater engagement with law enforcement that is unnecessary, particularly around drug use, and that this type of action has a disparate impact on Black communities, LGBT people, people with lower income, and working class communities, and there are better options rather than jail and incarceration. This resolution asks to recognize that the Say Something campaigns after 9/11 had the unintended consequence of having people call the police on their neighbors when they see an ordinary person walking down the street. But in addition to some of the concerns that we're wanting this resolution to recognize, it also wants to recognize the very good job of the Greenville Police Department that's already taking place. I know that there are several protesters who felt safer because of the officers who were there at the protest this past week. We recognize in this resolution that we hope and understand that the work that's being done across the country is going to take time, and that at the federal level and the state level, this could be a long process. But we believe that there are things that the city of Greenville can do immediately. And this resolution asks the city of Greenville to prohibit the use of lethal force by officers and to support de-escalation techniques and the use of non-lethal actions, to prohibit no-knock, no announcement raids within the city of Greenville to protect residents and officers, to allow law enforcement officers to make referral to mental health and addiction services rather than to arrest people for drug use, and to support local law enforcement and the justice system and elected officials with education about dismantling racism and how to work with marginalized populations such as LGBT people, people with lower income, people who are homeless, veterans, victims of domestic violence, those suffering from addictions, and people with a mental health diagnosis. And this resolution asks the city council to begin a See Something, Say Hello campaign that encourages people to get to know their neighbors rather than calling the police as a first response. Finally, this resolution asks the city to institute a one-year process that would allow for residents of Greenville to provide input to the police department and to city council about what they would like to see happen to make sure our community stays safe, and whether this is a task force or some other kind of input process. And finally, as part of this, this resolution asks the city to recognize the good work that police officers in Greenville are already doing. So this is the resolution that we have put together for City Council to consider. I want to thank you for allowing us to present it, and I believe there are others on the phone who would like to say something in support too, so I want to thank them as well.
Anyone else wishing to speak? State your name and address and add your comments, please.
Hello, my name is Amanda Murphy, and I am a resident of Greenville. I have read over this several times, and I think it's well written. I think everything in it makes sense. And if anyone was to refer to the 6 asks that are on the back page, there is nothing written there that wouldn't benefit police officers, judges, and citizens of Greenville. So I ask that the council and the local governments do please take all of this into serious consideration.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Michael Gully. I live on Oxford. I just wanted to say that I support the resolution.
Would this be the time to address another issue?
If no one else wishes to speak on this matter, that's fine. If you have something else to bring up, then state your name and purpose.
I do.
Go ahead.
I have something to say on this resolution. Okay. My name is Leah Garcia. I also am a resident of Greenville, and I support this.
What's your name, address?
And I would like to say something. My name is Terrell Boney, and I'm a resident of Greenville, and I would like to support this.
If anyone is addressing council, we need you to state your name and address, please.
All right.
Terrell Boney of Greenville. I would like to support this.
That's cutting out on my end. I don't know.
Carol, we need your street address.
Willow Place Apartments, 1370 Benden Way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If nobody else has anything to say about that, my name is Mason Gordon.
I would like to say something,
Okay.
if possible. My name is Jean Warden. I am a resident of Greenville, Ohio.
Your address, please.
500 Main Street. I was in fear of reprisal and was going to withhold my address, but I feel the statement needs to be made. First and foremost, I want to commend the Greenville Police Department on their decorum during the rally held earlier this month. I want to state that I am for the City of Greenville Racial Equity and Community Safety Resolution. As a lifelong resident of Darke County, I have never, ever feared of walking the streets of Greenville until recently, when guns were brandished for the purpose of fear and intimidation. It was an ugly sight and does not reflect a peaceful community. That is the reason this resolution is important to the many minorities that live in this community, including Black, Hispanic, the LGBT community, and many others. They have the same right as all Americans not to have to live in fear of their lives and livelihood. They have the same right not to be treated with dignity and respect. I know that many people in the community feel the same way, but are afraid to say anything after the earlier events that happened this month, and I think we can all understand why. Please take this opportunity, consider this resolution on its many merits, and allow us to uplift this community to a standard of excellence and exclusivity that I know we are all capable of. In closing, I would like to thank the City Council for allowing us the opportunity to lend our voices of support to the diverse people of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council? State your name and address.
Hi. This is a different issue. My name is Mason Gordon. I live at 1200 Evergreen Drive, Greenville, Ohio. It's actually in Wayne Lakes, but I've been a member of the Greenville community for my entire life. And I wish to address the council on a proposal of the construction of a crosswalk at the intersection of Russ and Oxford, or Russ and Benden. I don't know if this is something I would address before the council or go directly to the zoning department, but this crosswalk would benefit the low-income housing people that live by the hotels over by Walmart in Greenville. I've noticed multiple times that there will be someone just like standing in the middle of the road, or like standing on the side of the road waiting for traffic to stop so they can jaywalk across the street, rather than walk like all the way down to where McDonald's is to cross the street and then go to Walmart. I think that the addition of a crosswalk here would be beneficial for the low-income housing people that live there. And I think that it would just be something that really needs to happen to kind of create equality for people who don't really have the luxury of owning a vehicle to safely cross the street.
Okay, thank you for your concern. Mr. Mayor or Ryan, should we have Mr. Gordon stop in your office, or maybe call and set up a time? Would that be how you would like to maybe start? I don't know what the best way to handle that would be.
Well, they need to have something there. I mean,
Honestly, the best way to start maybe would be to assign it to the safety committee. It's a very tough one because there's no traffic lights and because of the amount of traffic that's in that area. And because the law reads in the state of Ohio that all vehicles must yield to pedestrians. So if you put a crosswalk there, it can be very costly, I guess. So council is going to have to make a decision if they're willing to accept that cost. And I think the best way to go about it is a safety committee, and we could put a plan together and cost together and kind of move from there.
Okay. I would feel more comfortable when President Burkett is back to make that assignment. Unless someone else feels otherwise, I would rather have him do that.
Okay.
But I think I agree with what you're saying. That would be the way to proceed. So
I guess, Mr. Gordon, do you have, I mean, is that what you're asking for, is just a crosswalk at one of those spots? I could put some research and put some cost and then ask for council to take it to safety committee. Or if we need to meet prior to, if you have any other ideas, I'm definitely willing to hear you out on it.
Okay.
That'd be good, Ryan. Thanks,
all right.
Mason.
Excuse me, I'm just a little bit curious to why none of our concerns were addressed, and we were interrupted about 3 or 4 times with this, and this conversation is happening.
I will address that. I interrupted you. I apologize. It's kind of awkward having a city council meeting over Zoom. I'm sure you all are aware of that.
We've had it for 2 months.
I do apologize for interrupting you. Your concern is very important.
yeah, none of this is taken lightly. In the original topic here that Mr. Acker had brought up, it will be taken under advisement. It'll have to be reviewed by the law director, obviously, and discussed by the administration, but it won't get pushed to the side at all. And I apologize if you felt like you were slighted. We're just trying to get everyone an opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council?
I will. My name's Shelley Acker, and I live at 214 East Harmon Drive, Greenville, Ohio. And this is in regards to the resolution about equity and community safety. And I would just like to say that I support it, and also that I believe our great city of Greenville and Darke County could be examples for others. And if we pave the way to show that rural communities can be proactive, this would be a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we'll move forward on the agenda and go on to administrative reports. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Yeah, a few things down, informative and first thing is just to let you know, First Fridays will start again in August. So for me, the need of planning, it's one of those things that's going to take some time. So they're planning on doing the First Fridays in August now, starting out. And then if you should all know, Ryan Berry is now the Main Street and Visitors Bureau manager. So he has some new plans. So hopefully we'll see some new things come up in those First Fridays, and maybe even on some makeup Fridays on some different Fridays besides the first. One of the things that is going on in the city building is we're putting in windows in the tax department so that when people come into the city, It'll help with social distancing and tax time, that they'll be, instead of having to come into the office, and sometimes it gets loud and confusing and there's long lines. So we're putting in windows in the hallway, and hopefully it'll streamline things a little bit better. So you can check those out Wednesdays, or probably cutting those in on Saturday morning because of all the dust. So we'll do that another day, on an off day. If you didn't know, the pool is planning on opening on the 21st. As long as they still get the chemicals, I guess it's one of the items that's coming up that are a little low. So they're working on that. At the planning and zoning meeting just before this, we passed the preliminary and final development plans for Hardee's. They'll be in front of Rule King. We also did the preliminary and final plans for Marshall's, which will be going into JC Penney building. We also have an ordinance that you're looking at a variance here tonight for the council. But we passed all the development for the South School project of putting houses in there. The band, the concerts for the park and the band shell, their committee met and they decided to postpone their startup date until August. So they usually start the 4th of July. So they're going to postpone it a month and make sure they can work out their social distancing and get a good start in practice to start up for that concert. So you know, on the 4th of July, or on that weekend, we've always had a large horseshoe tournament, and that is going to take place. Granted permission by the health department for that. That'll take place on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July. And also during that time, there'll be a food truck rally in the park. So other than that, I'll pass. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Sounds like a lot of good things going on here in the city.
Gotta open things up.
Yeah. All right, Safety Service Director, Mr. Delk.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, Broadway downtown project. They began Monday to finish up the directional board. They're still working through that. Tomorrow or Thursday, they will start pouring the light pole bases. And then once they get those started, and as soon as they're dry enough, then we'll start putting all the sidewalks back in around them so we can get rid of all the poles downtown. And then the actual light poles are due to ship the second week in July. Due to the COVID, that company shut down, and so they just got fired back up. So as soon as they get them finished, they're going to ship them. So the goal is to have them up into July, 1st of August. The Wagner Avenue project is still ongoing. They're working on the widening portion of it right now. They're due to start putting curbs in within the next 2 weeks. So it's moving along very nice also. And then our urban paving project, which is an ODOT project, that they come in and they do an 80-20 split with us on state highways on paving. So that is from on 571 from the corp out by the cemetery all the way into North Broadway. And then it is from the Annie Oakley statue all the way out 36 to the corp out by Jaffe. So Walls Brothers got that bid from ODOT, and they're projecting to start mid-July on that. So it'll be a nice paving project through the city. And then last but not least, I'd like to discuss a little GPAT with council. So if you would like to wait until Mr. Burkett comes back to get a committee assignment, but I'd like to request that goes to a committee to look at GPAT. We have a lot of costs coming up, and we think there is a lot better options out there for us to stream council meetings versus using GPAT and the dollars that is going to take to move forward here over the next few years. So I'll leave that up to you if you would like to assign that to a committee or if you'd like to wait.
If it's okay with you, I think I would rather wait till next meeting, in case Mr. Burkett would like to put an ad hoc together, or if he just wants to assign it to one particular committee.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
That's fine. Absolutely. Okay. And with that, I pass, and thank you all very much.
I do have one other question. You were talking about the lighting, the poles and everything being on hold because of that company. Is that what we're waiting on also for North Broadway?
No, so North Broadway is a different company. And so North Broadway is, so the poles downtown are going to be city owned, city installed. The North Broadway poles are Miami Valley Lighting owned and installed. So we are, I've been constantly back and forth with Miami Valley Lighting. They were supposed to be installed in March, and then they assured me that they would be installed in June. And now I've been on the phone and emails with them all week this week, because June is quickly winding away from us.
Yeah, it's getting away quick.
Yeah, they are. So the process, what they're waiting right now is for their construction manager to set a date to install.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update on that.
Council President Smith?
Yes.
Yes, I have one other item I forgot to bring up, and I don't know if you want to address it tonight or not, but normally every year we waiver the permits for the 127 yard sales.
Okay.
That's going to be on, I think it's first weekend in August, 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. So I just want to know if you want to wait, or I think it just takes a simple motion to pass and do that. Do it or put it on the agenda for next month meeting.
Well, let's refer to the law director. Would a simple motion take care of that?
It should.
Okay.
I'll double check on it, but
that's what we've done in years past. So
that's right.
If someone wants to make that motion, I'm okay with it.
So moved. Have Clarence, Doug.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Audisha?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for adding that and remembering. Moving on the agenda then, we'll go to the law director, Mr. Reeman.
Thank you. There's just a few quick things I want to talk about this evening in regards to some of the litigation that you have before you. The first thing is we have some litigation to allocate some money regarding a property at 117 Tillman. That's a property we've been dealing with nuisance issues going back to before me becoming the law director even. That process has been through the courts. The property owner was given an opportunity, multiple opportunities actually, to take care of that property. And in January, the court indicated that they're ready for us to do something about it. So we've even slowed down the process a little bit to try to give the property owner some more time. At this stage, we just need to allocate some funds so that we can take care of that process. Those funds and the amount owed would be attached back to the real estate taxes. So there's a chance that we may recover some of it. I would say it's not a realistic probability that we recover all of them. But we do need to allocate some funds for that. The court is waiting on us. That being said, it's really made us focus in on how we're handling nuisance abatement in the future. Since then, so that we don't get into these situations again, I've tried working with the county to take some of these properties that have delinquent taxes to tax sale so that we can put some pressure on, if not getting the property owner to maintain the property correctly, to getting the property put in some different hands to perhaps somebody that's willing to spend some money to take care of these properties and get them up to code. And through that, we got served at the beginning of this week on a foreclosure and tax sale that's happening in regards to 316 12th Street. Many of you may be familiar with that address, as we've spent considerable time and effort dealing with issues there. So we're hopeful that now that that's moving forward, that we'll continue to have some good results and maybe get some of these properties from being eyesores and moving forward. The other thing that I wanted to discuss is there's also legislation tonight revoking Resolution 20-43. That Resolution 20-43 we put in place back in March under the direction of the Ohio EPA. And essentially what that said is that we would reestablish water service for anybody who had their water shut off since January, and we would not shut anyone off for delinquent accounts. The Ohio EPA in June came out and said that as Ohio's reopening, they believe that it's time to kind of get back to some sense of normalcy, and the requirement that we not shut water service off and allow delinquent accounts to continue to grow ends from them on July 10th. So the legislation that we have just mirrors that. I would want to say that if anybody's out there and they know of individuals who have delinquent accounts, please make sure that they're contacting the utilities department. The sooner the better, so that we can work with them to get a plan in place, because the time period of us allowing those delinquent accounts to grow is going to come to an end. The next item that I have is just as we have good news of Marshalls coming into the JCPenney building, many of you have probably seen that Gordman's has filed bankruptcy and they will be vacating their property. So win one victory and start to work on filling the next spot. And last but not least is there's legislation to approve a settlement agreement with Rob and Henry. Any questions or comments on that, I'd be happy to answer. I just ask that before we do that, we call an executive session to discuss those details. And with that, I don't have anything further, but I would entertain questions from anybody.
Who'd you say was going in out there at JCPenney's store, old store?
Marshalls.
Marshalls? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move forward. The auditor, Mrs. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just have one item to bring forward tonight. As required by the State Auditor's Office, I am notifying council that we have set up an escrow account at Greenville National Bank for a fire claim proceeds for a fire that occurred at 120 West Harmon Drive. So I believe that's all I have to bring forward tonight, and with that, I pass.
Thank you.
Hey, Doug.
Yes, go ahead.
I had my mic mute. I wanted to talk to Mr. Reaman about the 117 Tillman.
Okay.
You know, I talked to him today for like a half hour or so about that property. You know, the thing is about tearing it down for the 11,000 or whatever it is to do whatever to be done to the property. I looked up the property of 311 Chestnut Street. That was a house that was taken down by the city. That's over there by Jerry's Laundry. And if anybody goes over there on Chestnut, they can see that the grass is like 3 foot tall now. It's on a hill, steep hill. Looked up the taxes. You know, it's almost $6,000 in mowing that the city has done on that property. You know, I know we got dilapidated houses. I know there's houses worse than the one on 117 Tillman that's bad. And I just like to see some different way of attacking this, or you know, instead of tearing them down and the city taking on a liability of mowing it forever is what I'd prefer it as. But that's all I got to say about, you know, about it.
And I guess in response to that, Mr. Godwin, I don't disagree with you. And in fact, I think I'd mentioned this 117 Tillman property started prior to me. I inherited that. And so it was already in the court system as a nuisance property. As I had mentioned, we had identified 5 other properties or so that we believe are problematic. And through that, we've been working with the county prosecutor to move those other properties towards a tax sale. The issue that we have is with the 117 Tillman, if we can't get a property owner to comply, eventually the courts look at us to do something about it. We went to the court for relief in this and said, this is the problem, do something about it. And so now the court is asking us to kind of, since we brought it to their attention, to kind of carry through with what we asked for in the first place.
Yeah, but I went down there today, like we talked about, and I went down and looked at the property. The foundation's good on the house. The garage could be fixed up too. And, it's bad that a person that doesn't live in the city of Greenville that lets something go and don't take pride in what they own. And, I just feel that I know the court says we have to do something, but I would just like to see, just for that property, see something different happen to it, because it's on a hill like the one over on 311 Chestnut. It's down in a valley instead of on a steep hill, but it'll be a burden to the city to have to go in and mow that place, once everything gets cleaned out of there. And I looked at the other houses, and I don't think they're going to be wanting to take that property on. So, I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you. Moving the agenda, we'll go on to committee reports. Looks like we have 4 different ones for you to consider tonight. First one's out of the utility committee. This is reviewing a request for water and sewer services to a property at 7035 State Route 121. Okay, you have the committee reports, clerk?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. June 7th, 2020. Honorable members, we submit our report. The Utility Committee met on June 1st, 2020 at 1:00 p.m. in the basement classroom of the municipal building to discuss the following. Mr. Dennis Sides, 735 State Route 121 North, outside of the city of Greenville, requested on behalf of Remedy Plumbing and the Darke County Health Department. The recommendation is to hook up both water and sewer that are located across the road from residents, and to charge 110% for the water and 150% for the sewer, and the residents must pay all tap-in fees. $900 for water and $13.50 for sewer, and they must sign a pre-annexation agreement between the city and Mr. Sides.
Doug, when that committee assignment was put out, it was said that the water was way over on the Marty McCabe's property line.
Okay.
And Gary Evans was at the meeting that day, and he found out the water line is right across the street from their property, same with the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary and Don both said that, they needed to hook up to both, because there's really not a way of monitoring just sewer only. So that's why the recommendation from the committee to go was hooking both up instead of just the one.
Okay. Well, you've heard the reading of the committee report.
Motion to accept.
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to accept the committee report. Any discussion?
Yeah, is Mr. Sides agreeable to the water and sewer both?
I've had a phone call from Remedy Plumbing, and he said he doesn't want to hook up to water. And the comment was made before we hung up that he was going to check into an EPA septic tank or something. And I said, you're not in the city, so you can do whatever you need to do.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Howdeshell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right. We have another utility committee report reviewing a request from Tom Hunt about the size of the water meters. Go ahead and read that, please.
Honorable members, we submit our report. The Utility Committee met on June 1st, 2020 at 1:00 p.m. in the basement classroom of the municipal building to discuss the following. Mr. Tom Hunt downsizing the water meters from 2 inches to 1.5 inches located at 853 East Main Street, Greenville, and the location at 225 Birch Street in Greenville. And the recommendation is to keep the 2-inch water meters in service at both locations, 225 Birch Street and 853 East Main Street, and charge the 1.5 water meter rate and sewer rate for both properties.
All right, you've heard the committee report. Any discussion?
Yeah, on that property, Gary talked about the meters. If we switched it down from 2-inch to 1.5 inches, it was going to be a cost to the city to replace both of those meters from 1.5 inches. So then the decision was made just to leave the meters in place, the 2-inch meters, and go to 1.5 inch meter charge. So the meters are not going to be replaced, but we're just going to down the rate to 1.5 inch meter on both of those locations. They were put in 1962, and a lot of the washing machines nowadays are high efficiency, and Mr. Hunt has changed a lot of those, and he doesn't use the water for a 2-inch meter anymore. So, that was the decision to go to the 1.5 inch rate instead of changing the 2-inch meter.
Okay. All right. You've heard the report. Call the roll, please.
Motion.
Or did we have a motion to adopt that? I'm sorry.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Now let's call the roll.
Howdy Show,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right. There's a third committee assignment of utilities, reviewing John Baumgartner and Bill Coomer's request to downsize a meter also.
June 8th, 2020. Honorable members, we submit our report. The Utilities Committee met on June 8th, 2020 at 1:00 p.m. In the basement classroom of the municipal building, Greenville, Ohio, to discuss the following. Resizing the water meter from 1 inch to 5/8 inch meter size at Troy Sunshade, located at 607 Riffle Avenue in Greenville, Ohio, within city limits. And the recommendation is to grant the downsize of the meter to 5/8 inch from 1 inch. And the property owners will make all necessary changes to the water line to adapt to a 5/8 meter. And the law director is to prepare all the necessary legislation authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with the property owners. Respectfully submitted, Committee on Utilities.
Move to accept the committee's report.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to accept the committee report. Discussion?
Yeah. Mr. Baumgartner and Coomer bought this property, and they seen that there was a 1-inch meter hooked up to this property. They use no water in their production, and they have 2 bathrooms. So they're looking at some kind of way of cost savings for the business. They want to retain all the employees they have working there. And, this is one of the ways that they figured that they can try to save a little bit of money to retain their employees here in the city of Greenville, and figured that'd be a way to help them out a little bit.
Good.
Right. The motion in front of you is to adopt the committee report. Call the roll, please.
Howdy Show,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right. And now we have one more report out of the Finance Committee.
June 16th, 2020, to Greenville City Council from the Finance Committee. Honorable members of council, the Finance Committee has met with the auditor to review the preliminary budget for 2021. The budget that was presented to us is balanced and represents a lot of hard work from the department heads and the auditor's office. At this time, the Finance Committee recommends that we approve this budget. Thank you for your consideration.
Make a motion to accept the committee report.
Motion by Mr. Godwin to accept the committee's report. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to ordinances and resolutions. The first one is a resolution accepting funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund.
An ordinance to establish a local coronavirus relief fund. This ordinance establishes a local coronavirus relief fund in order to comply with the CARES Act and Senate Bill number 310.
You need a motion to suspend the rules and read that by title only, second, third time.
Motion by Mr. Godwin to suspend the rules, read this resolution for a second and third time. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
An ordinance to establish a local coronavirus relief fund. An ordinance to establish a local coronavirus relief fund.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Next, we have a supplemental appropriation ordinance.
One is, we added that one we just did this.
Okay.
That particular first one.
Okay.
A resolution accepting the funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund. This resolution accepts the funds from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act signed into law by the President of the United States on March 27th, 2020.
Make a motion.
Give this ordinance reading by
Suspend the
title.
rules. Go ahead, Mr. Whitaker.
Sorry about that. I didn't catch it. Title only, second and third time.
All right, we got a motion for Mr. Whitaker to suspend the rules and give this a reading for a second and third time. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Yes.
A resolution accepting funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund. A resolution accepting funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Godwin to adopt. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. You're going to have to work with me, Jessica. The list I've got and what we've added, I may be out of sequence here a little bit. So the next one I've got is the supplemental appropriation.
Yes.
Okay.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. This supplemental ordinance allows for appropriations in the following funds. Transfer elected and auditor and treasurer in the amount of $1,000. These funds are needed to transfer to the Law Enforcement Travel and Education Fund. Office expense planning commission in the amount of $250. These funds are needed for additional advertising through December 31st, 2020. Travel and education, law enforcement, travel in the amount of $1,000. These funds are needed for PD training and were provided by a state grant.
Move to suspend the rules, give this ordinance second and third reading by title only.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, give this ordinance a second reading by title only, and third reading, I'm sorry, by title. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Greenville, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Greenville, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Move to adopt the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to adopt the ordinance. Discussion? Call the roll.
Abisha,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, next we have another transfer ordinance.
An ordinance for the transfer of funds among the appropriations of the various funds of the city of Greenville. This ordinance allows for a transfer in the following fund: $205,000 from claims healthcare to stop loss healthcare. This transfer is needed to cover expected losses through December 31st, 2020.
Make a motion to suspend the rules on this ordinance and read it by the title only, second and third time.
Motion by Mr. Godwin to suspend the rules and give this ordinance a second and third reading by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Abisha,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
An ordinance for the transfer of funds among the appropriations of the various funds of the city of Greenville. An ordinance for the transfer of funds among the appropriations of the various funds of the city of Greenville.
Motion to adopt.
Got motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to adopt. Discussion? Call the roll.
Abisha,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, moving forward, we have an ordinance for a settlement agreement.
An ordinance authorizing a settlement agreement regarding litigation with Robin Henry. This ordinance authorizes a settlement agreement regarding litigation against a previous employee, Robin Henry, whereas the city of Greenville disputes any wrongdoing due to any actions or inactions of the city.
Make a motion to suspend the rules on this ordinance and read it by title only, second and third time.
Motion by Mr. Godwin to suspend the rules and give this ordinance a second, third reading by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Abisha,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
and Godwin.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing a settlement agreement regarding litigation with Robin Henry. An ordinance authorizing a settlement agreement regarding litigation with Robin Henry.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to adopt. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Abisha,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, moving on, a resolution to authorize expenditures of funds for an abatement.
A resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds to abate the nuisance at 117 Tillman. This resolution authorizes the expenditure of funds to abate Francisco Lopez regarding his nuisance property located at 117 Tillman Avenue.
Move to suspend the rules, give this resolution second, third reading by title only.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules and give this resolution a second, third reading by title only. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Which one?
You go ahead.
Can we talk about this property a minute?
Is it about the suspension of rules though?
Right.
No.
Let's get through that part of it, then we'll come back. All right. Call the roll, please.
Howdy Shell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Zucker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
A resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds to abate the nuisance at 117 Tillman. A resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds to abate the nuisance at 117 Tillman.
Move to adopt the resolution or resolution.
What
Motion by-
what happened to the discussion?
We haven't got there yet.
Now's the time.
The motion in front of us is to adopt. Now we can take discussion.
Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. I'm like Clarence. I think something can be done with 117 Tillman instead of tearing it down. If we're going to do a tear down, I have another one on 3rd Street that people's been looking at. The tear down, it's in worse shape than what 117 Tillman is. That's it.
Mrs. Willman, how much would this cost the city?
I believe the dollar figure that they're talking is $11,700 and some odd dollars.
Okay, I sort of agree with Clarence and Doug. I know there's worse houses in town, and maybe we can think about this and come up with another solution.
And so to be clear on where we stand with this, 117 Tillman was a property that back in 2019, litigation was filed in the Common Pleas Court to abate the nuisance, and the request at that time was made to the court on behalf of the city that that property need to be fixed up or torn down. The judge in that case, Judge Hine, ordered the property owner to do that, gave him time to do that, and has allowed him time to do that essentially all the way up until January of this year. Now it's to the point where the judge, because we've gone to the court asking for relief, is saying, I ordered the property owner to do something about this property. Now that that's not happening, city, you asked me to fix this problem. Now you're able to go in and fix it. So understand, if we go back to the court and say, no, we don't want to do anything about this property, you're potentially setting up the precedent in the future as we have nuisance cases that the court's not necessarily going to want to help us out, because when they handled this case before us, we didn't do anything about it when we pushed the issue. I just want to make sure that that's clear. And to understand, and going forward, we've kind of taken a different approach, as I'd explained to Mr. Godwin, that we don't want to be in this position, and we're trying to be more proactive. But mind you, this is a case that we've been dealing with going all the way back. The litigation was filed in 2019.
If I may, Mr. Reeman, so our two options, and I just want to make this clear. Could option 2 be the city fix it up? Obviously, we're going to have way more money wrapped up, and I don't know how council feels about the city owning houses and properties, but is that our other option?
And so potentially the only other option that the city really has is that because we have no mechanism to force the property owner to sell the property. So in dealing with abating the nuisance, we can either put the funds in fixing the property up, then trying to attach the amount that's due to the real estate, hoping then that we can push the property to a tax sale at that point in time, or essentially having the property torn down so that we know that the nuisance is abated. But we've got to abate the nuisance in some way, and we can't force the property owner to sell the property. I know we've been trying to get people to contact the property owner on their own to buy the property. If that were to happen, we certainly, even though the funds would be allocated, we could wait a little bit more and give a new owner the opportunity to come in and abate the nuisance. But frankly, we can't force this property owner to sell the property. And as hard as we've tried to force the owner to fix the property up, we've gotten nowhere. Even the courts have gotten nowhere. So the last thing essentially that we have to do is the court saying, well, if you're not going to do anything about it, we can abate the nuisance. And our cheapest route in abating the nuisance is to tear down the property at this stage, as opposed to investing the funds to rehab the property and then hope to get some of those back in a sale.
But if we tear the property down, then basically this Lopez, he had family members that owned property here in town or owned a restaurant here in town, which I've heard that it was sold. So, you know, and I guess they still own some property uptown, and, you know, maybe, you know, that place will be for sale too. And with him having the one restaurant out there on Wagner Avenue is not theirs anymore, maybe they'll, you know, want to sell this place now more than, you know, trying to hold on to it.
And we've been having those conversations with the property owner going all the way back into 2019. It's not as though this problem came up overnight. And in fact, the court's been kind of looking for us to do something since January, and we've been dragging our feet in the hopes that we could get the property owner to comply. But at the end of the day, we simply just can't force them we can't force him to sell this property. And so to the extent that we're trying to abate these nuisances, we need to do something.
Does he owe taxes on the house?
He does not have delinquent taxes to the extent that we could push this to a sheriff sale, which has been our strategy on the other properties.
Taxes on the property is $128 every 6 months. Is the property taxes.
After
Any other discussion?
don't we, after we spend 11,000, can't we reassess that then, can we?
Yes, absolutely. We can assess it. But as I had mentioned, as I was giving my report, I mean, realistically, even once assessed, we're still hoping that we've got to sell the lot for that price. So once the properties, if we expend the funds to abate the nuisance, we can tack those funds onto the property taxes, and then we can force a tax sale of the lot and hope that somebody's trying to come in and purchase the lot for development purposes. You know, as potentially the builders are having some success in popping houses up around town, I'm hopeful that they may come back and look at some of these other lots as an opportunity to develop in the future.
Mr. Reed, can't we impose fines or something to get them to move and do what they need to do to keep their property up in the first place? Or am I missing something?
And so we can file nuisance cases with the municipal court and the common police court, and that's essentially where this started. Is so we opposed the fine, it went to court. The judge said fix the property, and they've done nothing. And so now the judge is saying, well, somebody needs to do something. You brought this to our attention.
In my estimation, if he's been ordered by the court to fix his property and he didn't do it, that's contempt of court, right?
That's correct.
Well, they need to step on it. The courts need to step on it and put some teeth in their rulings. My opinion.
It sounds like
mind you though.
It sounds like it's going far enough though that we definitely need to do something, because like Mr. Reeman said, if the court says, well, we decided not to do anything, then they're not going to be able to help us out too much in the future, maybe.
Mr. Raymond, you said that he was brought into court for fines and things. What happened to the fines?
And so those are all part of the ongoing court case, and that'll all be assessed.
He wasn't paid anything on the fines.
That's correct.
I'm like, Jeff, why isn't he considered contempt of court?
Exactly.
You can pull it out of the term.
If nobody has to abide by a judge's decision and there's no penalty, no fine, no contempt of court because the property owner says, well, I don't want to, that's pretty nice. How are you going to get anything done?
And so the answer is that we have the ability to have the remedy, and then we have a judgment against them for the cost that it takes. So it's essentially the judge is saying we're allowed to do it on his behalf and send him a bill for it.
So if he doesn't pay it?
It'll be like
So then it gets,
Go ahead.
so it gets assessed to the taxes, and then we can also go after him civilly for those things in terms of garnishing wages and that kind of thing. It's just, those are, practically speaking, the way you have a hard time collecting some of these things because you're dealing with people that they're not paying. You know, we're not talking about $200,000 to fix this house. We're talking about someone who's unable to come up with, $10,000, $20,000 to fix a house. So the realistic chance of collecting money in the future, it's just not there. I get you a piece of paper that says they owe us money, but I also want to be practical with you and make sure you have realistic expectations of what we may actually recover.
Yeah.
Which would probably be zero.
I think there's a chance that if we're able to get the lot transferred, it won't be zero. We'll get something back. We won't get. I would be surprised if we were to get $11,000, but I also am hopeful that it wouldn't be zero. And that $11,000 cost is the full cost of our interdepartmental charges. And so in abating this nuisance, the plan is to have the street department handle the demolition. And so we have a rate that we charge that at, which is built into that $11,000 figure. But that $11,000 figure includes our own time billed at a reasonable rate and expenses. So the amount of money that we'll pay out per se is not going to be the full $11,000.
So we're paying ourselves to tear it down.
That's correct.
Okay, so the money we're paying, but yet it's coming straight back to us.
Right. If we are able to collect it in the future.
But okay, that's.
And there are some costs that aren't ours.
We pay ourselves to tear it down, then we add to his taxes. And hopefully one day we can get some back from him, from us having to go through all this.
That is correct. With the caveat to it is that $11,000 isn't completely labor. There are some costs in terms of having to take the rubble into the dump. So it's not like we have zero cost involved. There are some costs that we will have to pay out.
Has anybody really went by that property at 117 Tillman and looked at it?
I have
not.
I have.
It sets down in a hill. It's probably 6 foot under the road. Doug, what do you say?
Yes.
And as far as I could see somebody going in there and building a new house on that property, and the houses that's next door,
No.
tree growth and stuff, it's in the fence row. And I just look at it as a 311 Chestnut Street that, the city's going to have to go in and mow it, 3 to 4 times a year, and we're going to assess his taxes, and he's not going to pay it.
And where would this $11,000 or give or take come from? Do we have the money to do this?
General fund.
Pardon?
It will come from the general fund.
Okay.
Not a very good time.
I think we're stuck in a hard place in a rock.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Roxanne,
Yes.
how much of a shortfall did we have this month from the taxation department from last year? Do you know those figures?
I believe for this, from the month of May, wasn't it?
150.
Yeah, it was about 150,000.
And what was it last month?
247.
Yeah, almost 250,000 last month, 150 this month.
Right. I mean, unaudited numbers is what we'll say. But
Right.
in there.
Yeah, I understand.
The other part of that is that we are also looking, Clarence, at the month of July. You know, when people will be, the deadline for filing will come along. We expect to see a rise at that point in time. So before we assume that those figures are going to be permanent, I would suggest that we wait until we get the figures from July through and then see where we're at.
Roxanne, do you have an estimate of what should be coming in?
Not really. We're still waiting to see what happens for the month of July.
Okay.
Any further discussion on this?
Can we
Sounds like
table
this is
this
probably
until we
gonna
find out
come up
what
again
happens
here
in
at some
July?
point.
We're between a rock and a hard spot. Because if the court wants something done with it, and if we don't do it, what happens when we go back in on another property? What's Heinz going to do then?
Could be the same thing. You know, we're kind of on a new journey to some degree with having things like this happen. We've been trying to do some abatement and clean properties up in the city. It costs money. It's a horrible time for this to come up. But I would think that if we continue, that we could easily see more coming up. I mean, that's kind of the direction we've decided to go in. It's going to cost some money to clean up things in the city.
I can definitely see more coming up, Mayor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, nobody has the incentive to do it since you can go to court
Exactly.
and nothing happens.
There's no penalty.
There's no accountability.
Right.
Let me talk about a couple different properties. There was one on Martin Street back when I got on city council. And it's right beside McMiller's. It would be to the, if you go to McMiller's, it would be to the west. 2-story house, got a barn behind it. The law director then was going to go after that house and get it tore down. And it's a corner lot. And if you go by that house right now, it's a 2-story house, got vinyl siding, brand new windows, got brand new sidewalks all the way on both corners. And it's been fixed up, and very nice house. One down on Water Street that was being condemned, boarded up by the fire department, and there was a problem with the porch about ready to fall off of that property. And went by that house probably a year ago, and it's got brand new vinyl siding, brand new windows. House is fixed up. The tax base that we're getting on these properties that gets fixed up is more than what we get on a vacant land. So the tax base that we're going to lose from tearing down a house is, it's not going to be good.
Yep, if you can't get them to sell it, what are you going to do?
There's got to be a different avenue.
Well, I fully agree with you that tearing them down, as opposed to letting somebody have the opportunity to fix them up and make them nice dwellings and generate a tax base from them is a good thing. But like Steve said, what do you do if they don't, or they don't want to sell to somebody who will? That's the big problem.
Especially the location that the property is. Sits down in a hill.
Right.
Any further discussion?
We really don't have a choice except go ahead and take it down. I've thought all day about this. I've been down there, looked at the property, walked all the way around it, in it.
And as I guess one last point, as I had mentioned to Clarence, the court is looking at us to continue to move this process forward. We're in no rush to go spend the $11,000 to do anything. In a perfect world, potentially, once they know that we've allocated funds to actually do something about it, that may be even more motivation for the property owner to sell it. And if the property owner sells it, we're happy to come up with an agreement with the buyer that lets them know we won't tear it down. We'll give them a period of time to fix it up. But the problem is we've been dealing with this property. I know the fire department's been dealing with this property for years, and I don't think that we also want to set a precedent that we're not serious about following through on these nuisance cases. I think that's almost the worst case scenario is people know, well, you file a lawsuit against me, you'll bring me in, I won't do anything, and then you won't allocate funds and the court will just dismiss the case and then nothing's happened. And so there still is a chance for this property to change hands, but as everybody's kind of hopefully recognized at this point, we can't force the property owner to do that. All we can do is continue to show them that we're serious about taking care of this issue. And this, frankly, is the next step in making sure that they understand that we're serious about taking care of the issue.
If we don't have the authority to make him do something, how do we have the authority to go in and tear his house down?
So we have the authority to make him do it or for us to do it for him. And that's essentially where we're at. And based on this property, the decision was made at the beginning that the most cost-effective way for him to handle abating the nuisance was demolishing the property. I mean, he's just not willing to sell it. The hope was that that by this time it would have forced his hand to get rid of it.
There was a property on Anderson Street that the city street department was down there yesterday or today and boarded back up again because I guess people keep breaking into that property, and I guess there was a fire there a year ago, and Michael or Mr. Reeman, that they had if you look, the house is for sale now. A realtor has it. I don't know if there's a sign out there in front of it on Anderson Avenue that's and some of the taxes have been paid up on that property now since it's been boarded up. So the person's finally doing something to that house. That's located on Anderson Avenue.
But aren't they boarding the windows up? Then their neighbors taking them down?
Yeah, they was taking them back down. So they had to go back down there today or yesterday and board them back up. But it's a realtor has it for sale now for like $30,000. I think is what they're asking for it.
Right, and so that's our hope, right? Is that we identify these properties, that we show the property owner that we're serious about abating the nuisance to get them to act. And that's, Anderson is kind of a victory story in that, and that they understand that we're serious now about condemning the property, about pushing it to a tax sale if we're able to. The problem with this Tillman property was that there were no real delinquent taxes, and every time we tried to push them to make a change, they didn't do anything, to the point where we had to file a lawsuit in the common pleas court to have the judge come in and tell them, hey, do something with your property, and still nothing's happened. And so I think we're on the same page of what we hope the overall goal of this nuisance abatement program to be. You know, I'm with you. I don't think it's anybody's hope to go through and just start tearing down properties. I think so far this property has been unique in the sense that the property owner won't do anything, and they won't even allow the property, you know, the thought of the property to be transferred. And so again, the hope is as we continue to move forward through this process, they'll understand that we're being serious.
They just have to understand that there's always that threat to tear it down.
Again, I don't know why he's not in contempt of court.
Me neither.
Probably because what are you gonna get out? You find him in contempt, what are you gonna do? Not gonna pay a contempt fine, he goes to jail, you're still not getting anything out of it. It's always costing you. Of course, not gonna get anything out of it that way either.
If he goes to jail, then you're still not going to get anything out of him.
Right, you're not gonna get anything out of them, so they're not gonna do that. We'll come back.
That just makes a farce out of the whole system then.
Yeah, that's what
You
I
gotta have
was
some
thinking.
teeth in it.
Well, we can talk about this all night. I'll make a motion to abate the property.
We've got a motion on the floor to adopt it. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
We're stuck in a rock and a hard place. Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin,
No.
Okay. You'll have to work with me, Jessica. These are, I think we're at the point where on the agenda that we added. So I am looking at number 7. Is that correct?
yeah, it's the revoking resolution.
Okay, go ahead.
A resolution revoking Resolution 2043 regarding water supply services in Greenville related to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and declaring an emergency. This resolution revokes Resolution 2043 regarding water supply services, ensuring that the citizens of Greenville had access to clean drinking water under direction of the Ohio EPA based upon a letter dated March 31st, 2020.
Move to suspend the rules and read this by title only, second and third time.
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to suspend the rules and give this a reading for a second and third time by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
A resolution revoking Resolution 2043 regarding water supply services in Greenville related to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and declaring an emergency. A resolution revoking Resolution 2043 regarding water supply services related to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreak and declaring an emergency.
Move to adopt the emergency clause.
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to adopt the emergency clause. Discussion? Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to adopt the resolution. Discussion? Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, moving forward, then I don't have this one either. Jessica, number 8, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
An ordinance rezoning Old South School property from SU to PUDR for Robinson Community Development II LLC. This ordinance authorizes the rezoning of the Old South School property from special use SU to planned unit development PUD-R on a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Move to suspend the rules, give this ordinance third reading by title only.
motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, give this ordinance a second, third reading by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning Old South School property from SU to PUD-R for Robinson Bonanza Development II LLC. An ordinance rezoning Old South School property from SU to PUD-R for Robinson Bonanza Development II LLC.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mrs. Haudashell to adopt the ordinance. Discussion? Call the roll?
Haudashell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
All right, ordinance carries. That was the last one, is that correct?
There's one more.
One more, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing the downsizing of water meters at 607 Riffle Avenue, 853 East Main Street, and 225 Burt Street. This ordinance authorizes the downsizing of water meters at 607 Riffle Avenue, 853 East Main Street, and 225 Burt Street on a recommendation from the Utilities Committee.
Move to suspend the rules for this second, third reading by title only.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, give this a second, third reading by title. Discussion? Call the roll?
Michelle,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the downsizing of water meters at 607 Riffle Avenue, 853 East Main Street, and 225 Burt Street. An ordinance authorizing the downsizing of water meters at 607 Riffle Avenue, 853 East Main Street, and 225 Burt Street.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Mrs. Haudashell to adopt the ordinance. Discussion? Call the roll?
Haudashell,
Yes.
Rogers,
Yes.
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin.
Yes.
Okay, that concludes the ordinances and resolutions. Moving on, items of old business. Seeing none on here. Any items of new business? If not, we'll move on to communications.
We received the monthly report of May from the fire department.
Thank you. If nothing else, we'll move on to the call of council.
Haudashell,
I'd like to give a shout out of applause to our police department because they do a terrific job here in Greenville and the fire department. And with that, I pass.
Rogers,
Yes, I'd like to also thank the safety people for doing the fine job. Also, talking about blighted properties, we have one on 200 block of Morrow Street. It has changed owners. However, the new owner is not doing anything, and we're getting a lot of groundhogs up in this area from the creek. And so I think we need to maybe contact that owner and get him to do something with it. So with that, I pass.
I'd like to thank everyone that called in tonight and took time out of their evening to express their concerns and opinions. And I do appreciate that. And to all the members of council and the administration, I'd like to thank you for putting up with me tonight. Hopefully I didn't get this thing screwed up too bad. So with that, I will pass.
Whitaker,
Yeah, Doug, you did a good job, first of all. Second of all, I want to thank the mayor and the administration and the police and the sheriff's department and all the other outlets that did a good job in preparing for that demonstration, the first one. And the people that demonstrated, they exercised their right to do so, and they conducted themselves well from what I understand, and that's their constitutional right to do so. I want to thank them for coming and expressing their views on that proposal they have, their resolution, and it's got a lot of merit to it. And with that, I pass.
Right?
I'd also like to thank the all the law enforcement agencies that was here 2 weeks ago to protect Greenville and the citizens during the demonstration, and also the nice little demonstration we had Sunday evening. Went very well. I think that we're on the right track on cleaning these blighted properties up. The one property we were between the rock and hard spot, and but we got to show the people that we're serious about getting Greenville cleaned up, which a lot of properties have been cleaned up. But there's also, like Mr. Rillman knows, there's still some properties in litigation through the court, and I think things will happen here before long. That's all. I'll pass.
Godwin?
I just want to thank everybody for, speaking their mind today, and thanks for people that tuned in to listen to us talk about properties here in the city of Greenville, and everybody have a good night, and I'll pass.
That everyone? All right. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to adjourn. Discussion. Call the roll.
Howdy, Shell?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
Right?
Good night.
Godwin?
Yes.
Good night, all.
Good night, folks.
Thanks. Have a good
Good
night.
evening.
See y'all later.